the owners of these slave ships. Who are the biggest slavers in the 16th century? The Ashkenazi were the biggest slavers in the 16th and 17th century. There's a ton of sources out there, but I'll stick with the Jewish ones because that's just safer. Jewish merchants routinely possessed enormous numbers of slaves temporarily before selling them off. If a slave auction fell on a Jewish festival, it was postponed due to lack of buyers and sellers. Rabbi Herbert Bloom adds that the slave trade was one of the most important Jewish activities.
The cotton plantations in many parts of the South were wholly in the hands of the Jews, and as a consequence, slavery found its advocates among them.
I don't want to read this. It's not my favorite thing to bring up, but people need to know this because people do not know this, and people are confusing entertainment with research, typically speaking. There's a lot more to this. I threw you guys some superficial bones. You can connect the dots, and you should if if you care about anybody in this world. For lack of better words, bear in mind, nobody I know has a goddamn clue what the shape of the, where we are, what this is. If I'm not mistaken, assume I'm wrong. As it reads, understand, Ashkenazi refers to Germany and Europe. These are people posing as Caucasians. These are the same people who have pitted folks with less melanin against people with more melanin. I'm talking about white and black, crudely speaking, and anybody else, every creed and color who is not Jewish, for lack of better words. Because, and it should say the Hegelian dialectic is fascism in practice. My fault. The Ashkenazi bloodline, and keep in mind, this is one of 3 branches of Judaism. There are 2 more. One refers to Asia, crudely speaking. The other refers to Africa, crudely speaking. I'm only talking about one because it's relevant in terms of what you see everywhere, in terms of who's pulling our strings. Where am I at? The Ashkenazi bloodline does not have, is that where I was at? Yeah, the Ashkenazi bloodline does not have a Semitic tie to the land of Canaan. I'm talking about Palestine. It's the land of Canaan, just so you know, whatsoever. Now appreciate information such as this. It's not permitted on TikTok or YouTube currently. It will be flagged and removed, which is telling who's scrubbing information from these platforms. And that should worry you because that's the opposite of freedom of speech. But community guidelines is also the opposite of freedom of speech. Cancel culture is the opposite of freedom of speech. Polarizing positive vibes only, hating Snopes, hate speech, bullying, debunked, all these fucking words. It's fascism, censorship, same difference, and most people support it. The bloodlines in question control CBS, pardon me, ABC, NBC, Google, Google's biggest rival, allegedly Microsoft Bing, as well as DuckDuckGo and Yandex if you're a superficial internet baby. I've heard so many people praising those. They're controlled by Jewish interests. Surprise! Welcome to the party, assholes. And it's important to appreciate this because it's a red fucking flag. Oh, and by the way, what I rattled off having to do with Ashkenazi so far, yeah, I'm pro-Palestine. I support people who are raised and, have a tie to the land of Canaan, which means I'm not anti-Semitic. And this bloodline also spoon-fed people, pseudo-intellectuals, refer to anybody who says a bad word about us, call them anti-Semitic, demonize it. And people do because they're not very bright. They're not worth their salt. They didn't look into it. They bought into something. They're marching in lockstep with their horse blinders on, and they are the fucking problem. That's also why things are bad and getting worse and worse and worse by the day. Assume I'm wrong. They control all social media. They control the DARPA internet. And it sounds wild, but it's true. And look into it. I mean, you can prove what I said is true if you're diligent. And these are the same people in the world of literature, music, politics, religion, and Hollywood that people have been trained to praise and idolize as stars, sex symbols, revolutionary figures, supposedly, and there should be a comma. Really, these people have more because you and I have less. The fact that we sign the fact that we have to consent to signing a W-2 in order to work a job proves that you and I worked for them if you're diligent. This has to do with the Federal Reserve, which was established in 1913 under the pretense of being both voluntary and temporary. You got to buff up on usury. You got to connect a lot of dots, and you got to understand what was demonized. More importantly, this was recently removed from YouTube. Just appreciate why Jewish people have been kicked out of numerous countries. Countries don't exist anymore, but they used to. And if you do, there's a common denominator. It happens to relate to central banking and the usury system, which you and I currently live under because we are debt slaves. And people don't understand this. And we are steadily fucking working towards social credit slavery. And no one is doing anything to stop any of this. None of it. I've wasted so much of my time, energy, my breath trying to get through to people, and no one fucking cares. And or they don't see it because I'm censored on the DARPA internet. This is also relevant. 2023 is when people were waxing poetic about the sound of Freemasons. And there was also supposedly a lizard person on a plane. It was most likely a CIA distraction campaign. Either way, that shit was bullshit. Plus, Mel Gibson hung out with Peter Nygard. Peter Nygard was, I don't know if he's still in jail, but he was in jail for sexually molesting children. And Mel Gibson used to hang out with him. And Mel Gibson is associated with the sound of, what was it? Freedom is what they dressed it up as. Really, that movie financed human trafficking. It was originally under the banner of Disney, which is also a red flag. And then it got passed off to Carlos Slim. If you buff up on who Carlos Slim is, he's best known for human trafficking and drugs. And that's who financed the sound of Freemasons. Why would I give you that entire disclaimer statement? Why would I waste my time doing that? Because the month all this garbage, all these distraction campaigns were put out there and people on TikTok were circulating that shit instead of focusing on what was taking place, July 1st, FedNow was introduced to the banks. Under the premise of it being technically voluntary, they could opt in, for the lack of better words. They could choose to do it, even though it does not benefit banks whatsoever. But all of the banks, by and large, are in these people's pocket. So, most of the banks did. FedNow was one of the incremental steps towards social credit slavery. Look it up. FedNow. And Fed something or other is also in the fine print in terms of Instagram threads, but people didn't read the fine print, now did they? Most people bought into that. Further marginalizing people, but what do I know? In the same month of July 2023, did I say it right? 2023, July 24th, WorldCoin also began testing with a digital incentive. And superficial people said, I want some free money, and they bought into it, so they supported it. Just like people are supporting the verification process. It's all red flags, and this garbage is in place to pave the way for what? Social credit slavery. Bear with me, I gotta pour some more water in my rice, because it's going to town. There we go. Back to point. Either way, I mean, none of this shit exists, but it does because you and I are not surrounded by smart people who are aware of what's happening and why it's taking place. They're paving the way for a fascist fill in the blank, if you will. So we idolize them and all the other shit, and it's absolutely true. W-2s, we signed those. It's unconstitutional, but I've bumped into pseudo-intellectuals who will argue in favor of that shit because they are not worth their salt. So the District of Columbia, you need to appreciate the year 1871. That marks when the Organic Act established the District of Columbia, which is what the Washington Monument symbolizes. Just to be clear, this is when the Republic was officially dead and done, meaning nothing is for the people by the people. And it has not been for the people by the people since 1871. So anybody who's waxing poetic about being a patriot or any of that other horse shit, they're full of shit. Case in point, they fly the wartime flag. Here's an example. Do you see this bullshit emoji bar down here? Written into the algorithm to dumb people down? Well, based on your keywords and other bullshit, sometimes you'll see the wartime flag of the District of Columbia in there. That's accessible. But the peacetime flag was not written into the emoji bar. Nudge, nudge, something, something. Use your brain. Where are we at? So I was talking about trilateral city-states. It's threefold, hence tri. The District of Columbia is on the bottom. That's the military-industrial complex. The middle is the Catholic Church, which is social control at the Vatican. These are all city-states, mind you, and that also has an obelisk. Look up the names associated with it. It's very telling. The Catholic Church is not a good thing. And it's part of the trilateral city-states. Obviously, it's a piece of shit, but Google will lie to you, and most people will assume otherwise. The top of the trilateral city-states is the Banking Financial District in the UK. It's known as the Crown, not to be confused with the royal family. That's not royal. Who also has ties to Germany. Ashkenazi, nudge, nudge, something, something. Just saying. But the Banking Financial District is known as the Crown, a.k.a. the city. It's where the money goes. It's where the money flows. And this is where all unconstitutional tax dollars are funneled. Some of them are divvied up into the black nobility, and I'm off script, but this is stuff I've said one too many times. The black nobility is also on the crest of the royal family, just so you know, because they're in bed together. Two of the names of the houses which utilize the money that you and I send them are the House of Liechtenstein and the House of Orange. In other words, you can use the two houses to figure out the other houses. You could use the keywords and do the right thing. But you don't see anybody talking about these things because these things are censored online and people by and large do not have a goddamn clue what's going on. I have to stress that because that's why things are bad. Where are we at? And assume I'm wrong. Again, there's where the two of the houses are. Let's see. You can use what I said as a tool, unlike most things people crap out. Now understand that the trilateral city-states are in league with Israel. The UK and the US are the biggest proponents that established the earthly abomination that is Israel. Chances are none of you understand what Israel represents. When you look up at the night sky, guess what? That symbol having to do with, and this is poorly worded, having to do with Germany that most of you are terrified to mention. It's a corruption of the sigil, mind you. It's got a lot of names too, but where am I at? People are by and large afraid to mention it, and it is censored when you post it, even though it reflects history. It's censored on a number of platforms. At least when I've left it online and tried to explain it to people, those videos were removed. Whether somebody was offended and flagged it or the algorithm removed it because of patently fascist censorship, really it's the same, one and the same. Sorry, I got distracted. Where am I at? It's also known as Israel because when you look up at the night sky, that's Israel, because Jacob was renamed Israel in the Bible. That's why the earthly abomination is a golden calf, which is technically bastardizing something that is crucial to how the entire system functions. Not that anybody understands it. Obviously, otherwise you would hear so many people whining about this. Those of you out there who do complain about Israel, here's the shortcut to thinking, too. Well, here, I'm getting ahead of myself. I said, now look at the last four letters of Ashkenazi, because our masters are laughing at us. Okay. Think of a symbol, okay? You with me? Think of a stop sign. I use this one a lot. Let's talk about a stop sign for a second. Nobody understands it. But you guys were trained to use a sigil that is a stop sign. It's the same difference. Pound symbol, tic-tac-toe, hashtag. It's got a lot of names because it's been rebranded numerous times because it's a big deal. You with me? This is different from a stop sign, would you agree? Now think about the Chase Manhattan sigil. It's also a stop sign because our masters understand what's going on. They understand how things work, and they are manipulating you and I. Now, look up an image of the Chase Manhattan sigil. Think of a stop sign, but also look closely and you will see that sigil you're not supposed to talk about embedded in the Chase Manhattan sigil. I shit you not. You got to look close. It's not as distinct because sigils reveal and sigils conceal. And the way these things are hidden in plain sight is a leg will be knocked off. It will be gender bent in some cases. What else? It'll be inverted. And if you think of Nazi Germany, it was literally turned 45 degrees and a color scheme was applied. If memory serves me, it's a Saturnian color scheme. I'm pretty sure it's black and red. Where else have you seen, black and red color schemes? Comcast and Netflix. Assume I'm wrong. I could teach you things you're not supposed to know, and most people aren't willing to put in the time because they're as superficial as they come, and they are the fucking problem. If you hung out, thanks for hanging out. I think I left this out too, or at least I meant to squeeze it in there. Also appreciate it. I was listening to Patti Smith earlier. I was listening to Leonard Cohen earlier. And I was listening to somebody else. Some Courtney Love. All three of them, Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi. Bob Dylan. The list goes on. The list fucking goes on. And it should make your head spin. So much for diversity. So much for giving other people a chance. It's a big fucking red flag. So what you plug into, Google, currently, it won't lie to you about this. Plug in a name and ask, do they have Jewish blood? Do they have Ashkenazi blood? Sometimes you got to get creative because sometimes it will give you some shit at first. And you might have to tell it, this is a straightforward question that requires an answer. You might have to add that to this in order for Google to answer a question. Also appreciate there are people like, here's my example. Let me throw this out there before I get to the other stuff. Star Wars, space propaganda. So Carrie Fisher and, I almost said Padme, but yeah, Princess Leia and Padme, Carrie Fisher and Natalie Portman, both Ashkenazi. Okay, that's a red flag. So is Harrison Ford, space cowboy Indiana Jones, Jewish. He likes to pretend that he's not because he has an earring. Mark Hamill's not, but he recently showed support for Israel because he's a Zionist puppet, which means he supports fascism. Fascism equals genocide plus Zionism, or any group that's murdering large groups of people. It's not something that's acceptable. Anybody who's enslaving people, fascist. And you and I are debt slaves. What you consider the world, it should terrify you. It's not what anybody wants to appreciate, but it's absolutely undeniably fucking true if you put in the time. So back to Star Wars. So Mark Hamill's not, but he supports fascism, and online he's polarizing people, which is the Hegelian dialectic. He'll tell you to praise a fucking celebrity puppet. In particular, Steward of the District of Columbia, the bottom of the trilateral city-states for review, which means he's either a moron or he's misleading people, and most likely he was paid to do so. Maybe I'm wrong. He only supports Israel. That's a red flag. Let's think about Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that was played by Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor. Neither of them have Jewish blood, but they both married into a Jewish family. One of them, I forget which one, married into a different branch of Judaism, if memory serves me, the Sephardic, which I never say right, and that's what has to do with Africa. For review, Ashkenazi has to do with Germany and Europe. I don't know why I'm doing this, but yeah. Probably because some of the maps are all fucked up. Either way. What I was also going to rattle off is you can prove this to yourself online, at least for now. Ask whether or not CBS was founded by Jewish interests, and you can build on that. And you can do the same for NBC and ABC. You might have to look into things like Time Warner and connect that with these for NBC in particular to get the genuine answer. But lo and behold, same thing. Same applies to Google. I think I already said this part. Google, Microsoft Bing, Yandex, and DuckDuckGo. These are just some examples, but this is what people consider the media. This is what people consider, browsers to produce information, which means all of this has been hijacked. It's all been corrupted, which means it's weaponized, which means this is not for the people by the people. As I already stated, nothing has been since 1871, and this should concern you. The other thing you need to appreciate is another steward of the District of Columbia. Obama's not a good person. He's not. None of them are. None of them are. The Obama administration, what did they do? They took the Smith-Mundt Act, and what the Smith-Mundt Act is or was, it used to prevent what you would call the U.S. government, which is a corporation. It's not that at all, but the government bullshit. That's a phony jurisdiction in place to subjugate the masses. But what it did was it took the Smith-Mundt Act, which said in writing, legally, that you and I could not be spoon-fed propaganda. We couldn't be lied to. And the Obama administration threw that out the window and created the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. So a lot of times what I'll say is if something's new, like the new age propaganda or people waxing poetic about the new earth, this is all garbage in place to pave the way for a one world religion. And the same applies to the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. It's the same song and dance. So what this did, and you can Google this, Google will still tell you the truth. You might have to be a little clever with your wording, but it will tell you that the American public, citizens is probably what it will tell you, can be spoon-fed propaganda. And this is why social media was rolled out by and large, because social media, by and large, is propaganda, which is why you have a feed. This is also why you don't get diverse results anymore. You can't scroll endlessly. There's lag, and it will drag you back to the top of the slush pile where you were spoon-fed absolute rot. Propaganda. Garbage. Mind candy for dopes. Platforms like TikTok are exclusively propaganda. I have documented numerous examples of people waxing poetic about propaganda campaigns. And I've thrown you bones and shown you, the breadcrumbs. This is why they are what they are. This is what you could do with it to prove that I'm right in this case. I'd rather be wrong. And I do not enjoy wasting my time and energy doing what I'm doing right now, trying to help people. Just to be clear, if you hung out, thanks for hanging out.